I think we're live, man. Let's get it going.
This is LV Home Experts, the show. This is Dan French here. I'm here with Chakits Krulsawat. He is from Simply Vegas. What's going on today, Chakits?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good, good, good. I have we have Brett Jenny here in studio. And what's going on today, Brett?
Just enjoying my Saturday, trying to do some business.
So right now, we're going to talk today about short sales. We're going to talk about bank-owned properties. And what we're going to do is we're going to have Brett talk about this because Brett has a nice background in this, and also Chakits knows a lot about this as well. We went through the process. It's not a huge part of the market at this time, but it is something we need to address because it could come up, and also it may come up here in the near future. So, Chuck, let's go ahead and talk about our topic here for the week, which is bank-owned properties and short sales.
All right, so we're going to talk about bank-owned properties and foreclosures. How does this process work if you are interested in buying a bank-owned property or a foreclosure? The question is, what is the difference between a bank-owned property and a foreclosure? Because I get calls all the time. People are misled. They're like, hey, I want to buy a foreclosure, thinking it is a bank-owned property. But the word foreclosure means that the bank has not owned the property just yet. They're going through the process of foreclosing. Once it becomes a bank-owned property, now the bank owns the property. So we're going to start off by, how does this all begin? Where does it begin, right?
Right.
So in early 2007, 2008, when the market had collapsed and we had over about 18,000 homes on the MLS, right?
That's a lot.
Yes. About 98% of them were all bank-owned properties.
Compare that to today.
And today, we only have 6,340 homes currently listed on the multiple listing service.
How many months of supplies or supply for homes is that?
1.8 months. So basically, you have about almost 2 months. After that, there is nothing out there.
Now, obviously, properties will open up. You think that going into these new the summer months, people are going to start to want to move.
Correct.
And so I think this is going to be something that we need to really talk about here.
Yeah.
Brett, let's talk to you. So you've been in this, how long have you been in real estate, Brett?
Total of 15 years.
Okay. And give us a background about how you kind of came into the business, a little bit about you, so some of the audience knows who you are.
Sure. So I'm originally from Madison, Wisconsin area. So
okay.
I did real estate back in Madison, Wisconsin for about 4 years. And I moved out here in January of 2009.
Wow, that's a long time
right
ago.
In ground zero of it all.
Wow.
So, literally. So I would put it this way. What kind of market did we have then? The first 2 years, from 2009 to 2011, and
Yeah.
I kid you not, I showed homes 7 days a week. And the amount of homes that I showed where there was actually somebody living in there that wasn't vacant was zero.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Wow.
Every day, 7 days a week for 2 years were vacant properties. That's how bad it was.
And so the process of getting into what a short sale was, explain what a short sale is to the audience.
So what a short sale is you're basically shorting the mortgage.
Right.
People think a lot of it has to do with, it's a really quick period of time that they want to close. It's actually the exact opposite. It takes a lot longer, or it used to. It depends on the bank and the lender.
Yeah, correct.
So you're shorting the mortgage. So what you're basically, the difference between a bank-owned property, a foreclosure, and a short sale is you're basically going back to the lender and you're asking them to take less on the loan than what's owed on it.
Correct.
So say your loan is $250,000, the market value of the house or whatever you want to short it for is say $175,000. You're asking them to let it go for $175,000.
So why would the bank do that versus foreclosing on the home and it becomes an REO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Real estate owned, taking the property back and just selling on their own versus just doing a foreclosure? How does that benefit the bank?
Well, first of all, a lot of them are insured, so
Yes.
they're getting their money anyways.
Yeah.
Second of all, the foreclosure process can be very costly for the bank, tens of thousands of dollars a lot of times.
So
Wow.
it'd be in their best interest to go ahead and do a short sale because they're going to save more money.
Just
so basically,
number-wise.
what happens is they have an asset manager. So the asset manager, based upon the region or the location, they'll take a look at their full portfolio with that service or with that bank to see if it makes sense. And 9 times out of 10, it just makes sense to do a short sale versus foreclosing on the home and taking the property back.
Right. So that's the short sale process part,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
What is the difference between that and, let's say, a bank-owned property?
Bank-owned property, the bank has already taking the property back.
Okay.
So there is no, I want to go back to the bank and ask them to forgive the difference.
It's already taken.
And they have a legal right to come after you.
So let's talk about how this process works. So what it is an owner of a property is a mortgager. The bank is a mortgagee, and there's a third party, which is the trust, and the trust holds the trustee's deed. That's the security instrument,
Right.
and that's the beneficiary is the bank. So basically, it's spelled out. If you don't pay us, what happens is we end up foreclosing. Normally, after 90 days, you'll get a letter. Then another 30 days from there, there will be a notice of sale. Once it gets to a notice of sale, the property goes onto an auction block where anybody could bid on the home, and you would have to pay cash. Normally, the banks will have a reserve. If the investors don't meet that reserve, then what happens is the bank takes the property back. Then they'll list it with an agency out here in Las Vegas. So that's just kind of the gist of things.
Right. And so we talk about bank owned, and then we talked about the short sale process. Obviously, it's a lot quicker to go to the bank owned process. Is there any restrictions for the bank owned as far as if you're making an offer on a property that you know of?
That's a very good question. So when it comes to a bank-owned property, it depends if it's Freddie or Fannie Mae, right? If it's going through HomePath. For the first 30 days, what happens is if you are a primary resident looking to buy your first home, within the first 30 days, you have better leverage than any other investors out there. If it's a secondary home or if somebody's buying it to invest,
Right.
you would have to wait after 30 days in order to make a bid.
Yeah, and they still have this, I just had something actually come across my desk
Yeah.
where they wanted to buy an FHA property that was bank owned.
Yeah.
Now, it's within that 90-day rule, and that 90-day rule for FHA is still intact.
Yes.
So you have to look at, somebody wanted to make an offer on it. They were like, well, is it bank owned? Well, most there is some restrictions, but
Yes.
the big one there was the 90-day rule. So are you guys dealing with or seeing FHA, not flips, but that's what they used to call them, as flips within that 90-day process?
Well, that's a little bit different. With the flip properties, yes, you have to do that 90-day rule because you can't buy a home for $100,000 and 3 weeks later you're selling for $180,000
Right.
because you have an appraisal issues. That's why you have that 90-day rule. But you don't really get too many bank-owned properties out there anymore. That's just like less than 1% of bank-owned properties, and short sales is another 1%. So it's a total of 2%.
Short sales is probably
Yeah.
even less.
Exactly. So now it just comes down to, is it really worth it to buy a bank-owned property? Well, it's really case-by-case basis. Now, with the bank-owned property, people think that you deal directly with the asset manager. That's not how the process works. There's
Right.
a lot of steps involved buying a bank-owned property. What you'll notice when it comes to real estate transactions, the transaction is never the same. The fundamentals are there, but you have to go through that process and step by step, and you want to make sure that when you're buying a bank-owned property, you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's.
Absolutely.
Especially with the prelim title report, because what happens is once they foreclose on your home and take it back, now you have a chain that's broken on that title. So you need to make sure that the deed that you get is actually free and clear by the time it gets transferred on over to you.
Now, obviously, we're not in that market now.
Yes.
Now, we're talking about a past market. You do get a lot of people that say, doom and gloom maybe a little bit, if you want to call it, where is it going to go back to that? And do you guys ever see...
I hope so.
do you ever see us going back to a market like that in the next, 5 years?
I would say so because the cycle goes up and down. But the problem is that it really depends on the feds if they print more money. Depends on the bond market. I don't know if it's going to be a hyperinflation or deflation. A lot of people say, hey, I'm just going to wait till the market crash. But you have to understand politically what's going to happen with the United States.
Yeah, a lot of people, though, Chuck, they don't know
Yeah.
what, and this is nothing against anybody out there, but
Yeah.
why don't you explain the difference between hyperinflation?
Okay. So what hyperinflation is, when you start getting shortage on supply, what happens, things cost more money.
Right.
Okay. And when you get deflation, what happens is when you have a lot of money that's being printed out there, it pushes everything down.
Right.
So you get more money for things or less money for things. So it just depends on the market and where the market is going. That's why when people are like, hey, I'll wait for the market crash, you just don't know where this market is going.
Right.
And if you take a look at Venezuela right now, right, just the way that economy is running, you have hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Just last year alone, I think it went up 2,000%. So basically, if you went to go buy a cup of coffee,
Right.
you're not paying $1 trillion. You're going there, right, with a bunch of dollar bills, and you're basically weighing your dollars
Yeah.
just to buy a cup of coffee.
That's crazy.
Their dollar bill has sank like 95% in value in
Yeah.
the past 5 years.
Wow.
Here's the thing. I had a client that was from Venezuela, he came on over and showed me like one of their bills. It's like $1 trillion bill.
What?
And I look at it, I'm like, this thing looks fake. It's like Monopoly money.
Well, it kind of is.
Yeah. Well, think about it. But he's like, hey, guess what? I'm a millionaire. Well,
Yeah.
technically you are, but there's really no value, and that's what we call fiat money. But you know what? That's not what this topic is about. So
Right.
I want to jump back on topic with foreclosures and bank-owned properties. And one of the things that I get calls a lot is, hey, what about bank-owned or foreclosures? So that's the reason why we're talking about this topic today, is because people are just misled and they think, hey, I'm going to buy bank-owned property. I'm going to get the best deal. That's not how it works.
Right, and that's, I mean, like you said, it's 1%.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't really know what the differences are. If you look at, like we talked about this market, ever going back to what we said with foreclosures and where we had the short sales and all these things going on, we'd have to have something pretty significant happen, though.
We would.
Yeah, for us to get back to that level. So I don't want to put an alarm out there for anybody that's like, oh my God, this is going to happen.
People have to understand that back then, I mean, we all know Nina loans, no income, no assets.
Right.
I'm a teacher. I make $300,000 a year. Trust me. Wink, wink. Sign here.
Right. And
I mean,
yeah.
it's real people with real jobs.
Yeah.
Completely different story.
Well,
Yes, you know.
some lenders are still, that's starting to come back though, isn't it?
It is. Well, I mean, everything always comes back, but
It comes back, but here's the thing.
But it's the Go ahead.
It's not as it's not out there as it was before,
Yeah.
where it's as easy. You
Yeah.
know, there is some options out there, and it's very far and few. There was even, I think, something out there where Nevada was saying that they don't want to even pass a law stating that they could do stated income. I mean, there was a big problem, but I think what we're out here talking about is what is the real differences with these properties, and then how do you gain from some of these properties that, let's say, if you are looking for some type of deal or something out there, is short sales even out there that are still being, you know, put out as far as just making that deal and getting that?
Yeah, I mean, short sales are still out there, and you still could possibly get a deal. Here's the thing about a short sale. It just takes too long through the process.
Right.
And during that time period of 2008, 2009, if we were doing a short sale, and I did a lot of my short sales in my time, what happens is the buyer will end up paying for the attorney fees, right, just to do the short sales. The reason why is because a lot of the agents didn't want the liability. So they would hire a third-party company and an attorney that specializes in the short sale field. But what happens is the agent were marketing to sellers that were underwater and say, hey, you know what, we'll pay for the fee. But they would take that fee and pass it all over to the buyer. But the market was so hot, buyers would still pay for it.
Right.
It was crazy.
So if a home should be $300,000 and selling for $250,000, who cares if you got to wait? You're getting a home for $50,000 under. But guess what? You do a short sale now, the bank's going to come back at market value.
Exactly, because there's an asset manager. And here's the thing. You can go through this whole process and wait 90 days and finally get an answer on a foreclosure, but you realize, I'm not getting that $25,000 discount.
Correct.
Asset manager's like, I don't care. We're going to put it back on the market. Listing agent doesn't care because it's an approved short sale.
Right.
So now it's an approved short sale. You did all the hard work, the legwork. Now it goes back on the market, approved short sale. And that's what we see on the back end as agents. Now, when somebody comes in, submits an offer, they accept the offer.
Right.
It only takes 35 days to close from then.
No, you're absolutely right. And so you look at some of these things that gone on. Brett, give us some ideas that you went through as far as, did you have any clients or people that you remember from your last situation that, you know, took 6 to 12 months on trying to get some of these deals done?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it used to take a year and a half sometimes.
Wow.
So it did. So here's what kind of happened is, as they passed, what was it, AB 284?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, then it basically forced the bank's hands.
Yeah.
And they had already come to the conclusion where we just, you know, got to give in. So the problem with it before is when short sales first started hitting, it was maybe half of 1% of a bank's business.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've got a market that's like 50%, if not more, of short sales. It just flooded the banks. They didn't have systems in place. They didn't have people in places. The asset managers would get paid $14 an hour, have a stack of 300 files, ask them if they care.
Right.
They did.
And I remember back then, if you were in the short sale field, I mean, I dabbled in the short sales and I had a lot of listings. And I remember during that time period, investors would come out and they would work directly with the listing agent. Listing agents double ending it. At that time period, they're just making a killing all day long.
All day.
Yeah, we talked about how the asset managers were really the people that, or they were the ones that were getting schmoozed because they wanted to get all those assets to, you know, they wanted to take over those assets.
It was their connection that was so valuable.
Their
Absolutely.
lifeline. So, you know, you talk about some of the things going on in the market now. 1% of the market, you're looking at a past market that is no longer here, but we think potentially it could. Now, I don't know if it would hit as severe. Let's say if we did get to a point where short sales did come back,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to have 18,000 properties on the market. If that
See,
ever
that's
happened.
the thing. It's going to come back at market value, and if the rest of the market really hasn't gone down,
Right.
the market value is.
This is what I'm thinking. If when the market does crash, I don't think we're gonna have as much, and here's the reason why. Interest rates are at an all-time low, right? If you are at an interest rate at 3.2%, whatever it is, okay, and you bought it for $400,000, the market tanks, but you understand that you're in the position where you're gonna live in this home for the next 20 years, you're probably not gonna end up selling it anyway because your mortgage is so low. If you took off and left, no matter what, you're gonna be paying a higher rent anyway. So I think that's what we're gonna start to see here.
Do you see that? Do you feel like that the Las Vegans here in the market here, that they figured it out a little bit on, not just here in Vegas, but I mean as a whole, that the economy and the government and how all this is somewhat manipulated, that if they see the signs that this is going to go to that direction, do you think they're going to be able to pull us out of that? You know what I mean?
I don't think so. I mean, homes are selling like crazy here, and we are like past 2008 pricing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, there was a bubble though, and everybody's like, "There's a bubble." You say there's a crash. We don't see any signs of that though. You know, so I mean, could we have one? Yes, and I don't want to go off topic, but this will affect our housing market and our housing livelihood and everybody's way of life.
Oh,
so,
well, big time. You have to understand that Las Vegas is built based upon tourism, and when the market does hit, this next crash is going to be a pretty big crash. I remember when we crashed in 2008. You know, Las Vegas was number 2.
yeah.
And Florida was number 1. I believe this next crash that happens, we are going to be number 1.
Well, what? Okay, give me an idea why you think that's going to happen.
Because Las Vegas is a place where tourism comes. That's our primary sector. This is not like Texas, right?
Correct.
This is not oil money. If you take a look at every single sector across the country, you have to see their city, their metropolitan area, and what their primary sector is.
Okay.
So like if you went to Dallas right now, their sector is pretty much the medical field.
Okay.
So the medical field will always continue.
Correct.
Here, people only come here to spend that extra money. This is a city that's very trendy.
Now, is it growing outwards as we've talked about though, where the city's getting big enough? You got a lot of sports teams that it could sustain itself now, where it's not just the hospitality.
You know, it's gotten a lot more diverse
Correct.
than it has, but back to Chuck's point, which is it's still not that diverse yet.
Yes.
So you're looking at the main money coming in here that's paying the taxes and all that with the casinos, with spending pocket change,
Yeah.
spending money,
Right.
fun money.
So you don't think that's ever going to maybe decrease or change in the next coming years?
Well, I think Las Vegas, when we took a hit in 2008, I think they learned and adapt from that. And that's why if you take a look at the casinos and what they're starting to do now as far as, you know, have different type of, I guess you can say like retail, and they're starting to be more creative, and it's just not only about tourism at this time.
Right.
And I think that's what they're really, or the city's really trying to promote, you know what I mean? It's all about family now, it's about, you know, food, convenience. So I think that's what they're really trying to bring versus just tourism.
Yeah, and so if you did get to that point again, I personally, this is just my opinion,
Yeah.
do not think it will be hit like it was before, because part of that, what Brett said, was we were writing bad loans, basically. I mean, we're writing loans that we couldn't back up.
Aren't you still writing bad loans?
I don't want to talk about that.
We're supposed to talk about that in there.
Shut, come on, man.
Hey, if you guys want to call into the radio, if you guys have any questions regarding foreclosures or bank-owned properties, go ahead and dial 702-257-5396. Or if you are interested in looking at some homes, visit lvhomeexperts.com.
Yeah, if you guys wanted a stated loan, I'm not your guy. So I just want to put that out
Just
there.
trust me, I make that money. Wink, wink.
So we're going to go back. So let's talk about it. So, you know, you talk about people that are doing or had done short sales. You talked about the money supply and also the Feds cutting rates. We're not going to go into details, but all this kind of accumulates to and points at, does the average consumer out there have the ability to go out and buy a home? Now, obviously, if it goes to a point where we did have a regression or some type of crash, if you want to call it, it would open up a lot of doors for people to buy a home. Obviously, that ones that can't buy a home. Right now, we're looking at price points. You said $367, right?
Yes,
367.
that's the average. The medium is $315 at this time.
What was the average median price point back in
Like $100,000.
I mean, I remember selling a house within the first month I got out here. So in February 2009,
Wow.
and I think we sold it for 110, And they came to us a year later and said, "Oh, we want to sell it." And I ran the comps and was like, "Oh, it's worth 85."
Dude, remember,
it probably got
remember
down to 70, 75.
10 years ago when I was working with
crazy.
Dan, we were piecing deals together at 110,000.
Yeah.
I was so excited to put deals together at 110,000.
I was like, I got someone in contract for 200,000. Payday.
Yep.
I'll tell you too. It's like when you make money as a lender.
Yeah.
Because I work with some people that make good money. They did very well. I mean, they had to do 20, 25, 30 loans.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, I mean, just to make the same. I mean, not even the same. I mean, it was for us to do that many loans, and today it would be like 3 loans or 3 to 5 loans today.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, because you got to realize the average price at that point was 150,000. You know, so I mean, it was just.
Oh, I remember those days.
It was grinding.
Big time.
101.
That's what it was.
Hardcore.
But that's how you got good at your craft.
Yeah, exactly.
Grinding.
Yeah.
And if
You
you
know?
were an agent in that time period and you were able to survive that, you're doing well now.
Yeah, you said it in the last show. You said that somebody came to you and said, if you can
Yeah.
survive this wave,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have business forever. You know,
Yeah.
so I think it's something to look at. I want to tell everybody out there though. This is us recapping how it was with the short sales and what is the real difference with bank-owned properties. Let's talk a little bit about foreclosures. Foreclosures. Foreclosures are something that you said it takes about a 6-month process for that to come back, right? So, meaning that if you get 6 months in and they're sending you stuff, usually that's the time frame for the bank to take over the property.
Well, you can do a short sale pretty quickly now, within probably like 90 to 120 days. It just depends. It also depends if there's one or two loans on the deal.
Yeah.
And if you are a buyer's agent, you definitely need to understand how this process works. Also, you need to make sure that you are screening the listing agent to see if they are actually a short sale specialist.
You absolutely
and
must do that.
have a couple deals under their belt and they're not thumbing their way through it, because you could be wasting a lot of time. And these are the things that you kind of just learn as you go. And it's so important to really work with an agent that understands this process. Now, if you are a buyer out there where you're floating around the 315 range, the 360, and you can't really get closing costs paid for, you're having a hard time, you may want to consider a short sale, because a lot of people in today's market does not want to wait 120 days to close on a home. They want to move in within the next 35 days.
So to recap, I mean, is there really a deal going for a foreclosure or short sale? I mean, is it really something in today's market?
Sometimes there is. It just depends on the circumstance. It depends on the property too as well. It depends if you're going to be paying cash or not. Sometimes the home that you're going to be submitting an offer on,
Yeah.
the pool pump's broken, or the pool's dilapidated, or the house is, then you can actually go in and negotiate the deal if you are looking for a great investment property. But the problem now is that you're not going to make as much of a spread. So if you're an investor and you're looking for a certain type of return, is it really worth your time?
Brett, do you have clients that ask about that today, about short sales and things? Or it's just so much foreign language now.
Yeah, it's so in the past. People don't. I mean, it's so small of our market right now. It's a non-concern for anybody.
Yeah, so it's just pretty much what we're trying to do is recap, go over some of the experiences.
I mean,
we
here's
had.
the thing. It's got to be a pretty incredible property
Yeah.
for someone to say, I'm willing to go through the short sale process right now as a buyer to save
Right.
Couple bucks, right?
a couple bucks. It's got to be more because it's the absolute property. There's nothing else for them, and that's the one. Which.
So we're going to go to break. We're going to come right back. We're going to talk a little bit more here about foreclosures, short sales, also bank-owned properties. This is Dan French here. Chakits Krulsawat from Simply Vegas. We'll be right back. And welcome back. This is Dan French here. I'm here with Chakits Krulsawat from Simply Vegas. This is the LV Home Experts Show. And we're also here with Brett Jenny. He's here talking about foreclosures, bankruptcies, not bankruptcies,
Short sales.
short sales, foreclosures, short sales, and also, bank-owned property. So let's talk a little bit about going back right into this topic. So you guys have anything else on your side of it that you want to talk to or talk about on this this topic here?
Yeah, you're probably better off just getting a bank-owned property or a traditional sale. If you are looking to get a deal, or if you are at a price point where you can't really buy a home because you're at that threshold, then you may want to consider a short sale.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't want to buy a short sale because of the time frame.
Yeah. And, we talk about if this market ever does come back for, with the financing part of it, we always looked at even when you got into a contract and you started the negotiation process, that wasn't the end of it. You know,
No.
you had to wait somewhere upwards to 3 to 12 months before you'd get an answer where it's like, okay, it's finally a contract. So as a lender, I remember getting those and I was like, well, I might get paid. So you remember you were like, I got to get, you know, you had like 30 or 40 of them and you just kept putting them into
Yeah.
escrow. But then you would wait and you wouldn't close or anything, nothing would happen until sometimes a year later.
And also what you can do is with a short sale, and this is what I like about short sales is you can submit an offer, tie it up in the escrow, and you have a clause in there where if they don't get it closed within a certain period of time, you can pretty much bail out of the deal, and you would write up like 10 offers.
You would.
No, you definitely would. So, you know, you look at some of the things that's going on in today's world. I'm really happy that obviously the market did come back and, you know, we have all these properties. We don't have a lot of properties on the sale right now. Real quick, why do you guys think that we have somewhat of a shortage, if you want to call it, for properties right now? Is it just people are staying in their homes because, you know, the interest rates are low and there's nothing out there that they can upgrade to or downgrade?
I personally think what's happening is that people around the United States, they kind of look around and see what's going on. And we talked about this last week with demographics. You have about almost 80 million baby boomers about to retire. So these people are trying to find a better climate, better place to live, cheaper on taxes, right? Something that's new, vibrant, and this is like one of the places. So if you take a look, even though that the average household, right? I'm sorry, the average price for a home is $367,000. If you take a look at California, it's still a lot cheaper to move on out here, and that's why again we see a lot of people from California moving on out here.
So, do you think? Have you seen markets like this in the past where we've been shortage on these homes? Obviously, everybody's kind of going to new homes, but how long did it? You know, do you see a recovery, or not a recovery, but do you see something happening where we get more properties on the market in the next few months? Because this is a normal thing that happens. Most of the, you know, we go through this process pretty much every year, or how does it work for you guys? Have you seen this?
Well, what I've noticed now is that, like I said, we have about 6,000 homes currently on the market at this time. You know, 1.8 month supply. The way that things are going right now, what you're going to start to see is the homes for resale is going to plummet, and it's all about supply and demand, economics 101. Pricing is going to increase based upon the way that this market is going. Plus, with the Feds drop the rates, I mean, I'm doing deals at like 3.35%. It is unbelievable at this time.
Yeah, and Brett, you know, like with your clientele and the people you're talking with and just trying to go through the process of getting them into houses, what are some of the challenges that you're facing, maybe with some of the clients that you're dealing with today?
Just multiple offers.
Really? So you got a lot of offers going on, and it's because there's not a lot of properties in the market.
Yeah,
right?
that's the thing. There's just not a lot of properties. So especially if it's a good property, well, duh, everybody wants that property.
Yeah.
So you've got 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 offers within a day or two. And if you have a client that needs a little bit of their closing costs paid for, or whatever it is, that would be actually a good scenario to maybe switch them over to a short sale too. Because no one's multiple bidding on a short sale, and you need a client who needs, say, half of their closing costs paid for. A lot of time banks will do that.
So the negotiation part of it with a short sale, and even in today's market,
Yeah.
how important is it to have an agent where they can negotiate
It's very important.
for the short sale process?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, no matter if you're buying a short sale or
Yeah.
a traditional sale, that agent must understand what is customary practices in today's market. They also must understand what's going on with the housing market, what's the average household income, what's the median price point for a home to be sold, where's the market at, where the challenge is. Because if you're buying a home at $367,000, that's the majority of your market, and it's a challenge. So if you are a new agent and you're going out there and asking for closing costs, you're probably not going to get your offer accepted, especially if it's in a good location and it's a move-in ready property. That's the reason why you're getting multiple offers on the property.
And these multiple offers, you know, having a seasoned agent is either going to seal that deal or it's not going to happen.
I'll be honest with you, Chuck and I, we've done enough deals where we know a lot of the other agents.
There you go.
So, you know, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
I have a great buyer. They've worked with you before. They know you're solid. They know you bring solid buyers. That goes a long ways a lot of times.
No, you're absolutely right. Agents want to work with other agents that can get the deal done.
Absolutely.
And the last thing they don't want is to go under contract. The deal falls apart because you try to piece this deal together and you weren't upfront in communicating and working together. Next time when a deal comes across his desk and you're submitting an offer, you're not going to get that deal.
Yeah, it's familiarity. You know, I have clients
absolutely.
that you look at that are, you know, California, you talk about Hawaii, we talk about East Coast.
Yeah.
And the questions I get a lot, especially on the financing side, is what is the benefits for you for me working for you or with you as a lender? And it's really because that lender that they're currently working with may not know the agent there, right, on the selling side. That selling agent might know my name and have that extra foot in the door
No,
to get in
you're absolutely right.
They know when you approve someone,
you're solidly
Yep,
approved.
that's
You know
it.
what I'm saying?
you're not
And we-
wasting time.
And
Sorry.
we've done no, don't be sorry. We're just talking over each other.
Yeah.
It's good. Just a couple dudes talking.
That's
We're
right,
just talking.
man. We're the beers.
So I remember we used to do deals. Oh, obviously we're still doing deals, but there's times where like, hey, I'm gonna do a deal. I already know Dan. I know he can get it done.
Right.
We just did one like that a couple.
Yeah, and
months
it's
ago.
agents are the ones ultimately coaching their sellers,
Yeah.
you know, the selling agents about, hey, we want to get the best deal, we want to get this, but then they see, okay, do we want to waste our time putting that property on the market if we know that they don't not confident, you know, the bigger banks and some of the banks out there that they go on these online banks, sometimes, you know, they take longer and sometimes there's issues, you know.
And when I used to take listings as a short sale, I would always make sure that the buyer was solid. Even though that they would send over an approval letter, I would say, hey, you need to get approved with Dan, and I want to see everything what's going on.
Absolutely.
Because some lenders or sometimes clients would just walk into a bank, and those guys that are sitting behind the desk, they're just issuing out papers.
All lenders
right?
are not equal.
Yeah, exactly.
By any means.
And it's not just the lending side of it. Let's talk about the title part of it.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a title company that you're working with on these short sales, or you have with the lender, and then you have a home inspector, all these people, everybody's like, well, you know, you're just referring these people because they work with you and you guys are friends. That's not always the case. The case is you want to make sure that you get the deal done. It's very important. Everybody has earnest money, deposit money out there at risk. We don't want to waste anybody's time, including the seller's time.
You want to surround yourself around people who know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
None of us get paid until the end. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
We don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're absolutely right, Brett. And so, you know, going back to talking about the whole process, you know, with the short sales and also the foreclosures and the bank-owned properties, all this process is somewhat the same for the financing world. You know, I talked about the big difference with the short sales is they just take a lot longer to close if it ever came back to that market.
Yeah.
Average turn time right now for me, a closing just a traditional loan is 25, 30 days.
That's pretty good because normally we put on the contract, I think it was 35 days for them to close.
Yeah.
And you know, the big thing right now is as past, you got to kind of look at what the short sale process was. Is almost like buying a new home because you would have to wait to the end before everything got done, and then you would really start the process of the loan part of it. You know, so you know, going back to it, you know, looking at the whole big picture with everybody out there looking for those deals. Is there deals out there? Because the reason why we're bringing this up with these foreclosures and short sales, and because the question I get is it cheaper? Is it more restrictive? Do I get a better opportunity to get an offer accepted, knowing that it's a multiple offer scenario? So these are the things that people want to know. Is it really a better experience? And is there really deals out there? Let's say that's foreclosure or short sale,
right?
Or bank owned.
I mean, as far as Fannie Mae, you got to wait the 30 days. If you're owner occupied, then you'll. Because I'm sure a lot of multiple offers, if you're below 300,000, even 325, 350, you're going to have a lot of investors that are throwing their hat in the ring too. So you're beating them out there.
So is that pushing people in that market that's under 300,000 to maybe now consider, is there something out there like a foreclosure or short sale?
Well, yeah, of course, but the problem is that there's just not too many bank-owned properties out there.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, if I take a look at the data for bank-owned properties, there's only a total of 80 properties. That's not that much.
So what
out of 6,000.
Yeah, where do these people go then?
That's
right?
what.
Right?
I don't know
Where
what
do
percentage that is.
Where does the people under the 300,000 range? Where do they go now? Is it, hey, I'm going to settle for?
You get an agent who knows what they're doing, and you have an agent who knows what they're doing and that works hard for you. It's real simple.
Yeah, like 250, right? I got a couple of clients right now that are out looking for a home at 250, and the things I get coming back is there's nothing out there, right?
Did you take them out to Detroit?
How many properties can
you get an acre and 3,000 square feet?
I don't know that market, man.
Trust me.
Well, it's just you get these questions, and we're like, you know what? Let's just address it. Let's talk about it. I mean,
you can't. There's really nothing out there.
Yeah.
The problem is that can you buy something at 250, a house, single family residence? Yes. You may not like the condition.
Condo.
You may not like the location.
Okay.
Okay, and that's a big compensating factor.
What about distressed properties?
There's no distressed properties out there at that price point, and if there is, this is what your challenge is. If you're financing, you're not going to be able to buy those properties why? Because it won't meet the guidelines of your lender.
Right.
The property won't appraise because of the condition of the property.
What about buying cash?
If you buy cash, that's where you're going to get most of your deals. Now,
Yeah.
however, you have to understand that this market is so inflated at this time, you're going to have a pool of investors bidding on the same properties. Now what's happening is you're losing your spread. So again, if we are all investors going after the same property, my numbers are a 10% or 12% return, and that's my threshold in order for me to do this deal. I'm not going to undercut myself at 8% because it's not worth my time. So it comes down to the investor and what their time is. Now, there are a lot of investors will do at 5% returns, but they're doing volume deals.
What about like fourplexes, duplexes? You guys see anything out there like that, especially for an opportunity? I mean, obviously you said it's a very small portion of the market, but for doing a short sale or having a foreclosure.
I haven't really seen any foreclosures or short sales for fourplexes or duplexes or anything like that.
You're not
They're
going
investor
to.
owned.
So there's a lot of
They were
people-
bought 10 years ago by cash investors who still own them.
And they bought them at $80,000. And here's the thing:
Yep.
now they're on the market for $100,000 a door. They don't care if they don't sell it because their returns are probably infinity right now at this time. Seriously,
For what they paid, why not? Yeah, it's free money, man.
They'll just sit on it because right now, if we take a look, there's only total about for multifamily, and this includes fourplexes, triplexes, and duplexes. There's less than 35 on the market. There's no short sales. There's no foreclosures at this time.
So the return on investment, I mean, that's another thing. So we're talking about why people would move. You got rates low.
Yeah.
Opportunities are out there. So right now, if you guys had to sum up this market, where we're currently at, would you say we're in a robust market that has very slow movement?
Okay, so let's talk about this. So if we take a look right now for single-family residents, and I'm talking about, just detached townhomes and condos, the average days on the market now is 31 days. But if we look since last year, it was only 25 days. But what
Yeah.
I'm starting to see is the pricing is starting to climb. Last year it was about 308, right, for the medium. Now it's at 315. So things are starting to climb. However, inventory is coming low, but the average days on the market is a little bit longer. But if we take a look, every 7 days of all the properties that are currently listed, 8.2% are actually doing a price reduction. So that tells you that they're overpricing the property. That's the reason why it's on the market for as long as it is. So if you are thinking about selling your home, if you are at the price point about 400 and less, that property will move quickly if you price it correctly. I just took
That's
a
the
listing.
threshold.
Yes. So I just took a listing. It was 4 bedrooms with a loft, with a pool. The property's worth about $335. We marketed it at $325 and said, hey, look, we're going to get this thing done. From $325, we sold it at $335 in a matter of minutes.
Wow.
Multiple offers.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
And we
Brett
played the
was just
game.
talking about that.
Nice.
You see what I'm saying?
You know?
Yep.
So, I mean, is this going to peak out, or is it going to keep seeing the market grow? I mean, is there something out there, Brett? Do you have any ideas about just looking at the overall economy and looking at here in Las Vegas? You see growth, see a lot of structure going on. Construction.
Without a doubt, I see a lot of growth.
Yeah.
I mean, and 35% of the people that have moved here from within the past year, I think, are just California alone.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
So, and like what, as Chuck was saying before, people are retiring. I'm from Wisconsin. 2 weeks ago it was -5 degrees.
Yeah.
So you're selling your home. The average price in Madison is probably about $350, the same price here. People are just migrating out here. They're selling their home.
Yeah, and the thing
So-
is too is like you talk about the foreclosure process. People were foreclosed on because a lot of them were put into loans that were bad loans, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that. So we're not going to see that same foreclosure. I mean, I remember doing this radio show back a couple years back, and we were like at 20% of the market was foreclosures. And I think what is it, like 1%?
Yeah.
Right? So the thing about it is, it's like we're not going to see. I'm just trying to find out, is there any indicators for people out there that really feel like we're hitting the peak, and we're going to start getting ready for the short sale, for the foreclosure process to start happening again? I don't know.
I just think things will eventually slow down because the average household income is only about $51,000. I mean, we're already 7 times the amount for a home. So I think it's just going to come to a point where we're pretty much going to get bought out at this time, and things are going to regress at that time.
What do you feel?
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I guess we're just in a market right now where we're going to keep going up until we see indicators. I don't see any indicators that this is stopping.
I don't immediately.
No.
Nothing. All and listen, I never see it crashing like it did 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I think it's
Because
like,
of, you know,
go ahead.
there's real people, there's real loans, there's a lot of real things now that everything has to make a correction. And if, you know, listen, if we were increasing 10, 15% every single year, I would say, listen, 2 or 3 years down the road, you can only kick the can so long, but it's well adjusted a lot of times.
Yeah.
I guess is a good way of putting it.
Is the financing still the same with a bank-owned property and a foreclosure?
Yeah, it's a very subtle difference. There's a couple things, but it's almost exactly the same process. Like I said, there's FHA. We had an FHA situation with the 90-day flip. A lot of times that comes into play because the bank takes the property over, whatever happens. But for the short sale process, I mean, if it ever came back to that market, I mean, like we talked about, it's a lot of negotiation. It's a lot of, you know what, when you get that first contract, we know that that's not the final contract.
Yeah.
So we just kind of get it prepared. You know,
Yeah,
you sit there for another 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of going through the same process, you know, with that. But I think what it is for everybody out there, and maybe you guys get this question, there's a reason we're bringing up the short sale process because we could go back to that market. We also could go back to seeing foreclosures again. But we also need to see something that says, hey, we've hit that target or we hit that mark. And I see a lot of people thinking, oh, we're any day now. It's going to happen any day now. Well, like I told you guys in previous shows or at past, Australia didn't have a recession for 28 years, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have a regression for 28 years at one point. So
the bottom line is you just never know.
you just don't know.
Yeah.
And so we're just kind of going over it to say, look, there's two sides of this, right? There's one side where if this does happen, this is what's going to happen.
We're just talking about it overall. I always tell people, listen, if somebody comes to you and tells you what's going to happen exactly with the housing market a year or 2 years down the road, run the other way.
Yeah.
Because you can't trust them.
Let me ask you this from a seller's perspective. If they just got done doing a short sale, but they want to get a loan, how does that process work and how long do they actually have to wait, again, just to get a loan?
Well, going through that process, typically as a short sale on an FHA loan, you have to wait a period of time for them to get back into, it's like a bankruptcy. You know, it's like you had something happen. Now, it's different, though, if you're a veteran. Now, if you did it if it was like a conventional loan, VA is its own animal.
Yeah.
But there's a time period you have to wait. It's similar to like a bankruptcy where you have to wait and you have to, you know, make sure that it exceeds that time period, then you can come back and try to get back into it.
So there is a certain time period, and I think also the other time period that you have to take in factor is your credit, because normally what happens is when you go through the foreclosure process, you can't make that payment. Now you have all these delinquencies, and that's where it really hurts you when you go back to get the financing.
Yeah,
right?
it does. I mean, it's like this. You know, I've seen people though where they did a short sale and they're at an 800, and within a year they shot back up to the 800.
Okay.
Because all they had was that one blemish.
And I'm going to flip this back to you, and this is where you got that credit simulator, right?
Yeah, we got a credit simulator. I mean, that helps people. I don't want to put out there that it's going to help everybody.
But it draws a map.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, I give it to everybody.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 40% of people out there really take advantage of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just a lot of times people are in a position. I've seen it on both sides where people are like, you know what? You know, I'm a 580 and I'm determined to get into a house, and I give them the blueprint to get into getting their score up high enough to get them approved, and they follow it and they do it and it gets done. So it's just there's options for everything out there now.
Yeah.
You know, for the lending side of it, there's everything that we can, you know, a simulator. We could pretty much narrow down to, you know, just anything really that goes on with the financing part. All bank options are open. So, you know, I think what I want to convey to people out there is that, you know, we talked a lot about the short sale, the foreclosure, a lot of the bank-owned properties and all these things that we talked about today. A lot of it is something people will never see or have not seen until something happens like that. So when you see these people that went through that process that are still around, are you still getting those questions, or those questions are just pretty much out the door?
No, those questions are pretty much out the door.
Yeah.
The only questions I get is novice buyers or novice investors when they don't find nothing that's on the market, and they mention to me, hey Chuck, hey, how's about some short sales and foreclosures? But you know, at that time I'll explain to them, hey, when I set you up on the search, I set you up on a home search with everything. So if you're not getting it, that means it just doesn't exist. And I think that's where the challenge is. It's the threshold as far as home pricing has gone up so high based upon, you know, 5-10 years ago, where, you know, 367 versus 250, it's a big difference.
Talk about the market. I'm just going to say this. You know, obviously I'm a lender, and you can get a hold of us outside LV Home Experts. .com. Yeah, you can reach us there. But there's a lot of equity in properties right now, and I'll tell you, man, everybody is out there trying to get that debt paid off. And I think right now is the refinance season.
Oh, no, it definitely is.
It really is.
We sent 2 clients to you. I
Yeah.
mean, you got one that bought a fourplex.
Yeah,
Young cat. Now his return on his investment is infinity.
because you helped them with that. That's big.
Exactly, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Also, we have another gentleman sent on over to you refinancing, and he's
Yep.
getting a killer deal.
Yep.
It just makes sense. And if you can get rid of that mortgage insurance premium and also drop your rate, why wouldn't you do it? I mean, I did it. I saved like $400.
You guys, as real estate agents, do you guys get people that says, "Hey, do you know a lender out there that can refinance or help me refinance?"
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Because like they'll still, instead of, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but
Yeah.
they always put that cart before the horse, where the real estate agent is the person that's the guru. You know,
Yeah, I
it's
guess
not
so.
the lender. It's like, hey, do you know somebody do this and this and this? And you guys like have everybody to direct. You know, it's all in your hip pocket, but it's just crazy.
Hey, I got a question from you from a subscriber. It says he owns a rental property and that's his only income is from the rental property. Can he actually finance to get a loan?
Yeah, no problem.
So how does that process work? Obviously, it depends on
Well,
what he makes,
if
right?
he's renting
Yeah.
and he doesn't own a home,
No, he owns a home. He's renting out the home. That's the only
yeah, they're
income
going to
that
hit
he's
him for
earning.
the rents though that he's paying or wherever his
No,
current.
he owns the rental property.
He owns the rental.
Yes,
property.
he's
Right.
making income from the rental property. Okay.
But they are going to still consider whatever his rents are in the like if they wanted to do like, okay, I'm going to use that income.
Okay.
They would definitely use that income if that's the question from
Okay.
that. Yes, they would use the income for to get it purchased.
Somebody just asked, do you have a link to short sales? Yes, if you go to lvhomeexperts.com, you'll be able to surf all the properties that are currently listed on the multiple listing service.
We got a caller on line 1. Denise, is this caller here? She's over there busy. So anyways, let's talk about the refinances. I try to get a hold of her.
Bueller.
Bueller? Hey,
Bueller.
Denise? Denise?
So,
Karen.
that's
You
great.
can't put 3 guys in a room.
Nice.
Man.
No, man.
We'll start clowning.
Tell you what's hot up in here though.
I know.
Yeah.
Telling you.
Smell like man must up there.
Get that door open. So we got Pamela on line 1. Denise, is she here for us? Okay. Pamela, are you there?
Yes, what's going on, Pamela? Yeah. Totally understandable. Now that's a question for Dan. However, his headphones is not working. So, Dan, the question is that this caller is fully disabled, and is there a type of loan that is out there?
For disabled?
Yes. Any type of programs or anything?
I mean, obviously the driving force behind every loan is going to be, can you have the ability to repay it? So is she getting disability income?
Yes, she said she is. And how much are you getting, ma'am? Yes, so this is what you're going to do. You can go to lvhomeexperts.com. There's a drop-down box on the financing, and that will link you directly to Dan. If you just go ahead and type your question and enter your information, and Dan will get right back to you regarding that information, okay? Well, thank you so much for the call in, and you have a blessed day.
All right, so let's go back. We were talking about the refinance situation, and I just want to kind of touch on this. So
Yeah.
This is really the refinance season, and everybody out there, FHA, VA, got streamlined VA, IRRRLs.
Hey, what's the rates right now? 1.2?
I mean, matter of fact,
After the last 2 days, bro.
I had a person tell me,
What's up?
hey, this person told me they're not doing anything until rates hit below 2%.
He was the first call, right? Cellular 5 a.m. Hey, Jim.
Hey, if he said 1.2%, his phone is going off. Right now.
Oh, yeah.
Call him now.
1.2%. Nah, just kidding. It's
So we
not.
got about a minute left. If you guys out there looking to possibly look and see if you can save money, reposition yourself, reevaluate your mortgage on doing a refinance, cash out. You can do a rate and term. Obviously, you can do a streamline, debt consolidation, home improvement refinances. Go to lvhomeexperts.com. You guys can find us there. You can fill out all your questions and insert all your information about what you're trying to do, and we'll see if it makes sense for you. So you guys have anything else to say here about short sales, foreclosures? It's kind of the end of the show, so we're going to...
Visit lvhomeexperts.com.
Brett?
Visit lvhomeexperts.
All right, that was funny.
No,
Man.
I mean,
You learned?
we pretty much covered it all.
All right, we're
It's
going to
just-
wrap this up. This is Dan French here. I'm with Chakits Krulsawat from Simply Vegas, lvhomeexperts.com. LV Home Experts, the show will be back next Saturday from 6 to 7 p.m. We'll talk to you next week.